blessed and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as love and support everybody shares with me. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting right into the story on hand. Today, I want to touch on a cellie I had and basically my beliefs on how wars start through grudges, right? Amongst Baileys at times. But I'm touching on this because recently I got sent a link where we're speaking about the camarada or the Billy Spooky from Hawaiian Gardens. And they wanted me to react to it, which I was, right? But again, the video they sent me to was all wrong. First off, the individual they were speaking on, that's the camarada Spooky from Cherryville. That's under Mike Lerma, right? And I was on the yard with him, which I felt it was just right. I would touch on my experience with both separately instead of doing a one full reaction, right? But anyways, let me take you back to the end of 2001 or beginning 2002, right? I had moved in with someone that if he didn't behave, I was to give couple coscorrones to, right? Which had happened to the, you know, from there, I moved in right next to Toro and Creeper from Ontario and Toto from Cuca. And at first I was single cell. And then a camarada drove up, right? And this camarada was spooky. Keep in mind, this is way before he got blessed or anything. He was just a camarada, right? Now, at cellies, you talk, you share things. As long as todo está bien with each other, then you find a way to get along, right? Especially being next door to a Billy's. And anyways, without getting too much into his stuff at this time, right? He was doing a lot. He was doing a lot. He had gotten back there for a booking, excuse me, for getting off on somebody, but it had to do with the feds. The orders had came down from the feds, and he went over the yard, the Billy that had the yard, to say the least, right? But he felt it was a must, him doing so, right? He was at the moment doing a lot of movidas for the Pilis and the feds, but him being in the state, it was never looked right. So more so I want to speak about his struggle, right? And how for some reason Toro, he was the main one there, right? And us being camaradas, he didn't like Spooky. For some reason, he felt he shouldn't be representing the feds, excuse me, in the state, and he was minimizing the Pilis in the state. You know, and it was an odd thing when it came to Toto at this time because, again, he was a famous Pili. At least at that moment, right? Tachp was he was cool, down to earth, always had the time for a camarada. With B, well, he shared personal pictures and a lot of personal stuff that, right, that there's no need to speak on. But anyways, one thing he had was he was a Maceron, right? He he moved a lot of weight when he came to Toro, and it had to do with his family in Zacatecas, right? And that's I think another thing Toro dislike, right? having a camarada in the pot next to him that basically moved a lot of weight as being a camarada, but he chose to do it for the feds, right? Again, it's all a jealousy trip, right? Specifically when it comes to the feds and state, and the state never come to terms that eventually they're going to end up in the feds. It's just part of the program, right? For when you're validated, or them specifically. Anyways, just to talk off top, he was giving Spooky a lot of carrilla in the sense of doing work, right? That it wasn't right for a lot of reasons. One was Spooky was short to to the pad, right? And I remember we went to the concrete yard. Next, one side was validated yard, the other side was just camaradas, right? And there was a few issues. And again, I was representing Toro on when it came to camaradas, right? Helping with responsibilities there, and he would always tell me like, "Hey, look, Chino, get this vato to do this jale," and it's the first jale he went out there and took care of business. That's part of, right? You're always going to be asked to bat regardless. And when it comes from a Billy, there's no questions, right? No questioning it. It's just push through and get it done. Anyways, then the second one was basically holding something, given the responsibility to hold something that was impossible to hide. If you guys get it, if the squad hit, it was like a setup, you know. And that I spoke on because we were in the same cell. The homie never complained, right? He was a good dude. I got to see well, some personal flickas of his hyena and what he was doing, and again, homie was doing a lot, right? But what I want to focus on the story is basically one day in committee, excuse me, the dog cages, in the waiting cages. All this came from Toto, right? Didn't come from my mouth, but basically we were in dog cages, me and him next to each other, and I asked Toto, like, "Hey, what's up? The homie's a good camarada. What's going on, though? There's a lot of vatos here that basically are just sitting down, right? That are lifers, validated, or have a long shoe that could take care of business, and this camarada would eventually go his way because he came in with like 10 months left on his shoe, and I believe he had like a year to the pad. You know, he was short, and Toro told me basically, look, where he did that hit, it was my carnal's yard. One I'm working with, real tough, well, turtle, right? And he minimized that yard, went over everybody, and stabbed one of the representatives of Turtle just because it came down from the feds with no type of respect, no type of getting out the pilis. He feels the feds have ultima palabra. And, you know, we're in the state, he has to obey. We understand his weight, his wiggle room, that's all right. But nevertheless, he needs to be set down to earth, and basically, look, I'll be sincere. I see no effort of him to respect the house, which at that moment was total, right? In the sense, I shot a couple of pills to him and I minimizes my word. Again, I seen them appeals and it wasn't even the case. I'll be honest. It was just Toto had already an itch out for Spooky, right? And I want him crash, Either he's gonna fall and play with the state because he's here, or he's gonna be stuck in the state. If you get it, or he's gonna walk off. In other words, he wasn't gonna stop till he felt homeboy was down to earth, to their liking, which that's hard, or he locked it up, basically, right? And again, what can one say as a sureño, right? But follow suit. And, within time, things settled down. Again, Toto wasn't, well, he wasn't really that individual, right? That really dwell on someone like that. I was surprised because if he felt like that, he usually has you removed. Well, there was a few cases like that, and he usually has you removed, right? But anyways, time went on, and I told Spooky like, "Hey, homie, you ever thought of sharing the well?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Look, I understand you're representing people from your area in the Fed, which is firmes. You know, each camarada has the right to choose their deal, but Pili is here in the state. They hold houses. As a camarada, you're to put yourself in this position when you arrive, right? What I mean is, hey, I'm doing this for this Pili, but here's something out of respect because this is your home. Or you're gonna do a movida, yeah, you have the mapil that came down from the feds. That's cool, but you show respect to the casa. Like, hey, look, this, and that. Here's the paperwork. Boom, boom, boom. Here's your brother requesting it, and you move forward. You take care of business, you know. And if you're making feria in someone's yard, of course, you're not gonna look out for him like your deal. But hey, here's a couple of these to make a couple $100 out of respect, right? That this is your home. It just and he's like, no, I'm being told to do things this way. I'll be honest, the homie was stuck in his thoughts and beliefs, right? And he goes, I know that's why they're pressing on me so hard, which is cool. You know, I ain't gonna buckle. When he said I ain't gonna buckle, I just left it alone. You know, in reality, if he was intent with what was going on, then what can one do, right? I just remember telling him like, just keep in mind, I know you're willing to go as far as the request, right? Here in the state and feds, but what does your Billy tell you right now? Nothing, because he knows I'm sitting down in the shoe. Okay, so what's going to happen if you get stuck in the shoe? And he goes, what do you mean? Yeah, you know how they're throwing the validation around, and what if in one of them movidas you pick up life? You ain't gonna be able to follow through with what you guys plan on the streets, right? For the Billies, the feds. And he said, I never thought it like that. And like all I'm saying is just be smart, do know what houses belong to who. And he told me a story, right? How I guess years back he was working for a Pili in the in the state, but it didn't play out. That's how he came back, and he said had a sour mouth, right? And he felt the right thing was what he was doing for the federal faction. And I said, hey, everybody's entitled to do their walk, right? To do what they believe is right. I'm just like a camarada, just sharing a couple points with you, but we left it at that, right? Again, me personally, I thought he was a real firme individual. But when I seen Toro had already spoken to somebody, and now as camaradas, they were trying to smuggle him up, right? Is what next to us was the homie Chino from Azusa and Snoopy, right, from Southside 18th Street. And the way they got at camarada, believe me, I would have been suited and booted in Amunos. But the camarada knew was part of. Time came where we had to separate. You know, it was we got along firmes. It was just time to separate, right? Because I am that individual that I always know how to separate things. What I mean is, like, he's my cellie. Whatever's going on outside of that cell, that's his business. I know what I'm doing. I know I worry about that, right? Now, if camaradas speak certain way to him and he don't buck up, that's none of my business either. Now, if he bucks up, he's my celly, right? But again, things came where the vato from Rivera, Lacey came, and he was in C-section at the time, right? And he had to go. He basically had a checada coming. It wasn't even like hard candy, right? And another vato, Shark from Pico Nuevo, no, Viejo, Pico Viejo. He came into the pod and he had something coming. So basically, we got requested, both of us, amongst us to choose, but both of them had to get moved on it, you know. And it was basically move in with them, and it wasn't for us to get it done, right? Unless it went wrong, and it was basically to see it went through, or them go out to yard, and but that's a different story I will get into. Now, within time, as you guys know, Spooky would end up paroling, with Shark. Shark went out to yard and he went out to the corner and he got what he had coming right from the camaradas. So it worked out there. With me and Lacey, I'll tell the story. It's a little more complicated than that. But anyways, Spooky would hit the streets, right? And as you guys know, he started working tough for the Fed. He started working hand in hand with Kenny. He start well, with numerous appeals. I wanna focus on the point, right? The point is, you know, he was working with for those that know his homeboy Champ. He was a heavyweight, right? As a camarada that was out there doing his thing, and they would eventually catch that Rico case that happened on Wine Gardens in 2009, and they would go out to the Fed, you know, catch catch a grip of time or all day, if I'm not mistaken, in the Fed, and they would be out there, and by that time he had, when a camarada has the right plugs. Is, for example, I grew up in it, right? For years I was so you're so love with a camarada and you're aware he's moving weight like Fuki was, and then you start directing things. Oh yeah, they're Sinaloa, boom, boom, and you start seeing them appeals, right? So anyways, he was everything you guys could imagine he had reach on the streets right before the Rico case. As he continues so in the feds. The kicker is, at one point, Spooky wanted a war against Toto. in the feds when he recently got made. And I guess other pilis, veteranos like Shy and them told him like, not to move fast because again, Toro is heavyweight when it comes to money. To jale, right? And the kicker is though how Toro changed. Toro being from the state, you guys know he got indicted and got shot to the feds. Well, after that conversation in the cages where he was gonna, you know, go all out on Spooky to see where he was at or to see how long he hanged, he was one of the biggest supporters of Spooky getting made when it came to the feds because he realized the homie's weight, right? Anyways, he would get made, and that's how grudges get started. I believe if they wouldn't have been put eventually where they're at, a big old conflict among them would have started. And then that's how you lose camaradas, right? Because again, they're the ones putting in the work. They have a stain for each other, and the camaradas are going to take care of it because that's what we do. We don't even know what's going on, but we're told to do something, and the worst part is on our own, right? But anyways, I just wanted to share this in look or this experience of mine with the homie, right? Because again, he was just a camarada. Eventually, he would go to the feds and get blessed, right? Made into the M. And as far as I know, he's a good Billy. But to the one that asked me to react to, and I forgot the channel, but anyways, he put out a video on Spooky from Cherryville, more so. He was speaking about Spooky from Hawaiian Gardens at times, but everything he showed was, or directed towards Mike, was Spooky from Cherryville. And Spooky from Cherryville, he has a story. That's why I felt it was right to separate them, right? Want to touch or put out more so on this is how the system works. It's a small world. You see, you go in, you think you're doing something correctly, but in their mind, you're not. Because remember, what you do for a Billy in one yard at one moment is not going to be liked by three, four other Billys. And are you going to land on their house? Are you going to be able to keep up? Because there is those Billys that just go after your juggler from the gate, period, point blank, they don't waste their time. And there is those Billys that are more concerned, to say the least, and they will push you through things to see if you break or till you break. You know, it went up one time between couple soldados from Toto and Spooky, but I refer from speaking on it for certain reasons. But again, the ones that got booked behind it was camaradas. They could be in a table eating together. You gotta go through the struggles. Anyways, I hope I made sense. I will here shortly touch on Spooky from Cherryville, the camarada, because as far as I know, he never been anything but a camarada, a good one, but a camarada. I think it's well, I won't speak negative on they where they want me to react, but when you put that chaqueta on a camarada to be a pilis, inside it's always looked at and not in a positive way because they're strong words, and I understand A lot of people go off internet, which is cool. Me personally is why I only touch on my walk, you know, what I know for sure. But anyways, at the end of the day, be loyal to where you need to be loyal. Stay free. There ain't nothing for you when you go sit down, but agony and suffer, believe me. As for family, stay loyal, stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones.
This is so we started. We always